It's week 8 of fantasy football and your teams are decimated. Whether it's injuries, whether it's bye weeks, you need players that you can throw into your lineup with confidence going into week 8 of fantasy football. So today I got you covered with my 10 under the radar starts to get you over the edge in your fantasy football matchup. When we did this back in week 5, I hit on 8 of the 10 players that I mentioned in that video. And today I got you covered with guys that maybe your league mates are overlooking. And we start that off with Darnell Mooney of the Atlanta Falcons going on the road to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. And with Darnell Mooney, he has quietly been very good this year. 22% seasonal target share from Kirk Cousins in this Falcons offense, and now gets a prime matchup against Tampa Bay. Again, same defense. He was the wide receiver 3 overall, 30-plus PPR points back in week 5. And with Darnell Mooney, I mean, like I said, very consistently involved this year for the Atlanta Falcons. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially of late, have seeded big plays in the passing game. I'll talk about Kirk Cousins in a little bit because he actually also makes this list at the quarterback position. But with Darnell Mooney, I'm starting him with wide receiver 28 overall confidence in my rankings. And I think for the time being, with what he's shown in terms of both of his involvement as well as the game environment he's in, I think we have to be considering him at the very minimum a high-end wide receiver 3 moving forward. So we'll see what ends up happening with Mooney. Again, very good game environment. I expect him to continue on the level that he has been. And while there is the potential risk that Tampa Bay doesn't score as many points as they did in week 5, I love this matchup, and I love the Falcons' passing offense for Darnell Mooney to explode in this game. Going on to Demario Douglas going up against divisional rival New York Jets this week. And with Demario Douglas, again, this is more of an under-the-radar option. I'm sure a lot of you guys would have seen how good Darnell Mooney has been playing this year. With Demario Douglas, I mean, the sour taste that was left in people's mouths if they played him Sunday morning against the Jacksonville Jaguars, he does well in the first drive, ends up leaving with an illness. But when you actually look at the usage for Demario Douglas in this offense once Drake May has taken over, he has been a top 30 wide receiver in each of the last 2 weeks prior to going out, and he has commanded over a 30+% targets per route run rate with Drake May in the lineup. I love Drake May. I think he's the stud, the answer to the quarterback position that this Patriots passing offense is needed. And now that Demario Douglas is off the injury report, now that we know that he is the clear #1 go-to target, despite a tough matchup, I really love Demario Douglas to break out down the stretch. He was on our trade targets video for a reason. I think he is currently being overlooked in fantasy football. He's a top 30 overall wide receiver in my rankings, and I don't think people have quite caught on to just how involved he is in this offense. And with Drake May playing the way he has been, I think they are both matchup proof at this point, even despite a low team total. And then going to Romeo Doubs, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers. And it's funny because I actually talked about a different Green Bay wide receiver in that week 5 video. But with Romeo Doubs, I mean, we'll just talk about the matchup right off the bat. Going up on the road to play the Jacksonville Jaguars defense that has been the worst pass defense in the NFL against opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers. Like you guys can see on the screen, Jordan Love, easiest matchup, 32nd across 32 teams in the NFL for the Jags secondary, going up against the quarterback position. And the same applies to Jaden Reed and co at wide receiver. And in terms of Romeo Doubs, after a disciplinary issue sat him out of week 5, we have seen him put up back-to-back big-time performances, 17-plus PPR points in each of his last 2 games. So with Romeo Doubs, great matchup. We know he's going to play 80+% of the snaps as this team's ex-receiver, and I trust Jordan Love and co to be airing the ball out a ton. I'm starting Romeo Doubs with top 36 level confidence. Moving on to running back, we start off with Rico Dowdle of my beloved Dallas Cowboys. And with Rico Dowdle, he is a very interesting case because while the Cowboys' ground game hasn't quite lived up to expectation entering the year, he has been the clear best back on this team as of now. He's second at the running back position in terms of receiving yards per route run out of the backfield, and he has quietly gone over 4 yards per carry in each game since week 1. We saw what he was able to do against Pittsburgh. Obviously, he has weird usage against the Detroit Lions, and Mike McCarthy was actually asked about Rico Dowdle's usage after that game, and he basically made it a point of emphasis. He definitely needs to touch the ball more, without a doubt. And as we see on the screen by Coach Speak Index, McCarthy has an 80% reliability rating when it comes to usage and workload Coach Speak. So when it comes to Rico Dowdle, again, the evidence points he's the clear best running back on this team. He's already shown that he's an asset in the receiving game, which we know is the Cowboys' identity on offense. And the 49ers defense has quietly been pretty average against the run. Again, we've known them in the last few years, this vaunted run D that you can't run the ball on. They've quietly, like I said, been average in terms of the matchup chart this year. So with Rico Dowdle, I'm starting him with top 30 level confidence. But if he shows an uptick back to Steelers level usage, we could be talking about a potential top 24 running back moving forward. A guy that I already consider to be a top 24 running back, I will give credit to right now with Chase Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals going to play the Philadelphia Eagles at home this week. And if you have Chase Brown, you probably already know he's a must-start option, top 24 option, but I do want to give flowers just to how good he has been in the last few weeks. Since week 4, he has clearly taken the RB1 workload away from Zach Moss, and he has been very good. Over 14 PPR points per game, a running back 18 in that stretch. We know he is the big play back of this Bengals offense. Very good game environment. Sharps are on the over. I expect both the Bengals and Eagles to put up points in this game. And like I said, with Brown getting over 60+% of the snaps in each of the last 2 weeks, I view him as a top 24 running back. Have the Eagles been good against running backs this year? Absolutely. But when I can get a big play running back in a very high implied total offense like the Bengals represent, I think that is the good process we need to be following. And Chase Brown, we need to be considering as an RB2. And then moving on to Javonte Williams going up against the Carolina Panthers at home this week. He's quietly played very well in the last month and now gets a top 5 matchup against opposing running backs this year. The Carolina Panthers are a dumpster fire, and quietly the Denver offense projects very well in this game. 26 implied points, 11-point home favorites. To put it simply, if you drafted Javonte Williams and you're not starting him this week, why did you draft Javonte Williams? When we're talking about the game environment, when we're talking about the usage, they're the best that Javonte has seen all year, and I expect him to continue the momentum we've seen in the last month. But moving on to quarterbacks, and I already talked about this guy's teammate with Darnell Mooney, but I love Kirk Cousins this week going up against Tampa Bay. Echoing pretty much the same points with Darnell Mooney. Obviously, we saw Kirk Cousins have his single best fantasy performance in Week 5 against Tampa Bay. 63 dropbacks in that game. And what we know about Tampa Bay's defense is while they are very stingy against the run, you can throw the ball across the yard on them. While I do think that the Falcons will try to impose the run game maybe at the beginning of the game against Tampa Bay, ultimately, they know they have the advantage in the passing game, having Darnell Mooney, having Drake London, having Kyle Pitts against an overmatched Tampa Bay secondary. So while we know Kirk Cousins won't run the football, the passing ceiling is up there with any single other quarterback this week. And I also really love Caleb Williams going up against the Washington Commanders on the road this week. Caleb Williams has been on fire in the 2 games prior to the Bears bye week this past week. And now coming out of the bye week, I expect this passing offense to continue catching fire. We've always talked about on this channel the post-bye rookie bump. Well, that applies both to Caleb Williams as well as Rome Odunze on this Bears passing offense. This matchup would be even better if we knew Jaden Daniels was suiting up with that rib injury. However, I still love Caleb's prospects in a positive matchup with how he's played in the last few weeks. Again, both him and Kirk are top 10 level quarterbacks in my rankings, and I'd start him over steady options like Brock Purdy, like Jared Goff. I would start both Kirk Cousins and Caleb Williams over both those guys. And finally, ending off at tight end, we go to Cade Otton of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Talked about Kirk Cousins, talked about Darnell Mooney. I'll talk about a cross matchup on the other side with Cade Otton. Obviously, the big elephant in the room, the big caveat that we know thus far is that both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin will be out of the lineup for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And what we've seen from Otton is him be a consistent presence in this offense, playing over 90+% of the snaps, and he's quietly commanded targets in the last month of the year. And in a tight end landscape where it's hard to trust many weekly options, I think Cade Otton has the upside to be a consistent week in, week out option given the situation at hand. Like I said, we know there's no Mike Evans, we know there's no Chris Godwin, and I think Cade Otton for the time being has 10+ target upside in this offense because although we know that those receivers will be out, we also know that Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not very good at running the football, have been very good at passing the football this year. I don't expect that to change even with the absence of those top 2 wide receivers. And then finally, Cole Kmet, tight end of the Chicago Bears. And this seems like just a teammates video because obviously I've talked about a ton of teammates in this video. However, I mean, we want to highlight good matchups. We want to highlight potential upstart offenses, which is exactly what I think this Bears offense is. Cole Kmet has shown massive tight end upside. I mean, he's the tight end 3 right now in fantasy. So maybe you're watching this and thinking, well, of course I'm going to plug Cole Kmet in my lineup. He's the tight end 3 for a reason. We've seen the big play upside. We've seen 20+ point PPR performances. But I don't think many really realize just how good Cole Kmet has been. And I think he has the opportunity where if he has another very good performance against Washington, we consider him a set it and forget it level tight end moving forward. I think he has the opportunity to rise above the likes of Tucker Kraft, of Sam Laporta, and consider himself a top 8 option if he shows the level of involvement that he did prior to the bye week. But either way, if you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a like down below. If you guys want access to all of our weekly rankings moving forward, there's one of 2 ways you can get it right now. First way, go over to Underdog Fantasy. If you use promo code FSE and sign up in first deposit, you make one play on the site up to $10. You guys will have access to our weekly rankings manifesto moving forward. The other way, flockfantasy.com. If you guys use promo code FSE on checkout, you'll have access to 30% off any site-wide package, as well as a 7-day free trial on the site. But with that being said, peace out. Good luck in your week 8 matchups. Hopefully you got the value in this video.